Hello? Okay. We're all wired for sound. I don't know. Let's see. This one worked earlier. Hello? 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 No. Oh, I've got to turn it on. That's right. Got to open the door here. Come on. All right. Now we're ready. Okay. We're 5 minutes late.
For us, that's almost on time.
That's on time, yes.
Those guys are still playing radio. And I don't know the full history.
Okay, welcome to the Collins Amateur Radio Club. 4 times a year we get together and discuss different things. Tonight, it's going to be DMR. But first, we'll go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Charlie, KC0CD.
I'm Tom, KD0HF.
Going that way?
Going that way.
Tim, W8KSC.
Jack, W0HHF from Cedar Falls.
And I'm Scott, WA0TPN from Rhinebeck.
A0TB from Rhinebeck.
Greg, K0CBL, Cedar Rapids.
Mike, KC0NXN, Cedar Rapids.
Larry, WA0FBH, Cedar Rapids.
Tim, KC0DN, Cedar Rapids.
Curtis, NK0T, Cedar Falls.
Stan, W0SJ from Cedar Falls.
Dave, WA9HBC from Walker.
Agnes, KB0EHC, Atkins.
Al, K0HWE from Atkins. Tim, N0CKR, also Atkins.
Ron, KD0DH, Cedar Rapids.
Barry, K0YLU, Cedar Rapids.
Rolf, KB0EGD from Solon.
Joe, WB0YFL, the voice of Troy Mills. Ryan, KA0YSQ, somewhere west of Hiawatha.
Mike, KC0PB, usually making plans.
Greg, KC0SCAM.
Al, KA0IES, Cedar Rapids. Mike, KE0DOB, Cedar Rapids.
Larry, K0FTM, Cedar Rapids.
Nathan, KB0DPG, Cedar Rapids. Mark, KB0HRT, Maringo.
Bill, W0GEN, Waterloo.
Oh yeah, one more. Hey.
Dan, WB5LCO, Shueyville.
Good. Well, welcome to the club meeting. Treasurer's reports. Anybody have an idea how much we got in there? Oh, yes.
9,439.67.
Okay, that's before we get the. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Outstanding. Thank you.
Charlie, I have a new budget check too, so the total should be 19,305.67
19.
once the budget check is deposited.
Oh, you mean we got the payout from Rockwell?
Right, for 2017 budget.
Yeah, how much was that?
9.
Oh, very nice. Yes.
Just gotta have them around.
I still have to get access to the account.
Yes.
I'm working on that.
That's great. Outstanding.
I just got the information I think I need for that.
Wow. All right. So that's what the current officers look like. Clubs and leagues. Okay, I didn't know that it had arrived when I typed this up, so that's really good. One thing that we're touch on here in a moment is the fact that we're trying to make a maker section in the 112 station. So we need So we had folks volunteer in the last meeting that were interested in, you know, picking the equipment and what to do and all that, and the expense and all that. And we didn't really get anything done because we didn't know how much Rockwell was going to come through with. And so the meeting never happened to decide what equipment we're going to get. So we're looking at things like pick and place, 3D printers. Somebody pointed out those are really, really slow. So like 12 hours to do some really simple thing, depending on how fine you want to make the steps. So we need to get a team together to make those decisions and spend that money. So if somebody could give me a piece of paper to pass around to, what? Oh. Oh, Rod should be able to come in. He's still, yeah. So, okay. So we're keeping up good visibility. They know about what we're doing in the clubs and leagues. One of the questions, should we do a Collins event later on this year, like September? Oh, on this piece of paper, if you're interested in being involved with the setting up of the Maker Fair, the Maker thing, put your name and a phone number and an email if you would. So kind of keep that in mind. We did it, I think, in September 2-3 years ago for 2 weeks, or was it a month? So instead of having it one day, just whenever you made it down to the club station, put the thing on the air, you know, it counted. Anyway, so here we go, sign up for the Maker Station. If you're interested in, you know, being involved with what equipment to get and what to do with it and all that stuff. Okay, we have the Junk in the Trunk Swap Fest on Saturday the 13th. That is the weekend before Dayton. So it'll be right in this parking lot right out here at 8 a.m. till everybody leaves. There's no cost, no prizes, no talk-in. What did I do wrong?
May 13th and May 14th, the two.
Well, no, that was last year's. I just modified the thing from last year and missed the second date. Keep me honest. Okay. I don't know about the VE session at 9 o'clock. I haven't checked on that yet. Or were you going to do that?
Nobody said anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't heard anything other than what we've done all the time, so.
Where would it be?
Right here. We'll get, you know, us that have passes. Okay, just pick up your stuff and, you know, same old thing we've done in the past. And the Hamvention is 1 week later. 30 days from today is Dayton, according to their website anyway. Okay, field day, the June 24th, 25th, month later from Dayton. Ham Radio's open house, annual event since '33. We kind of take over the park out at Hiawatha, set up lots of radios and all that kind of stuff, and get rained on, and it's windy and antennas blow. No. Well, that has happened, but hopefully it won't do that this year. But so if you're interested, keep your eyes open for that. Yes.
Question on field day, do we reserve a year in advance?
I don't know.
Yes, we do.
That'd be the man that would know right there. Okay, what's happening? We've got the 3-watt whisper station is online, more or less 24/7. Sometimes it turns itself off, or haven't figured out why. All the radios are up except the S line, so come and use the station.
Charlie, what's up with the S line again? What needs to be?
The transmitter, there's a problem with the transmitter. There's a list stuck to the thing that,
Gives the symptoms?
yeah, it gives the symptoms.
Okay.
And
That whisper station, that's the one you're supposed to turn off before you turn on any of the other gear.
yeah,
So, might be forgotten.
well, you can just push the little red button and the radio still thinks it's, or the whole system, the computer still thinks everything's on, but by punching that red button off, which I've got a sign hanging there, it it doesn't actually transmit. The radio, the computer puts out the deedle-deedle-deedles, but it doesn't put the radio into transmit. So then you won't see it. So just turn it back on. I don't know, when I've been listening to the D-Star, you get the little failure. I've noticed up on the 440 now, there's a lot of activity. People from France talking to people in LA and Minneapolis, and that's on the 440 repeater, the D-Star repeater. So it's linked. Somebody's got it linked to some of the, so that's kind of cool. So just talking about remoting one of the stations for everybody in the club to use. So we may get that done with some advice. So down at main plant, we do now have one of these up and hooked up to the antennas, and it's also an HF rig, so that's pretty cool too. So we just need somebody to go down there and put it all together. We've got the thing that'll sweep vertical and horizontal, and just need the programs on the computer and instructions.
I think we've got everything there. Vince Bella will be integrating and putting it all together.
All right. We'll put him on the bubble for doing that. Work night, Wednesday night at 4:30. And there's some to-do, you know, get the satellite station going. The Earth, a terrestrial UHF, VHF station, probably the easiest thing would be to hook it up to that radio, just with switching on the antennas. And document. So there's things to do if you want to do things. If you just want to operate the radios, that'd be good too. And finally, the 233 restoration project. If you want to work on something that is Collins, before the war, after the war, kind of depends on where you see the documentation. It's bits and pieces that were put together, sold to the airlines, a 3,000 watt transmitter that was used in the 50s and early 60s to communicate at the end with Western Airlines. So we're trying to get the thing back and working as a demo. We can't really put out 3,000 watts. So that's what we have. Any other comments, additions, subtractions? Any fake news I put in there, you know? Needed to do that, not a politician, but yes.
They still don't have anything where us retirees can get in without.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Have you gone to the main, to 105? And your name should, I'm pretty sure your name's on the list. You just go to the guard.
What was the issue with using the shacks, you mean, the club stations?
Yeah.
Or even like getting in here.
Oh, no, the reason I have one is because I'm a docent, because I work the museum. And that's what this is for.
Priority accesses that we have set up are for the two amateur radio stations in main plant and building 112. So at main plant, if you want to use the station, at entrance 1, you come in, they have a list of all the people, all the retirees. They give you a retiree, you can go in unescorted, use the station. Same thing in building 112, stop off at the 24/7 guard station there, which is in building 105 on the very southwest corner.
You have to go in at entrance 1. You can't go into.
Yeah, you can't go into entrance 4.
At main plant, you can't go into entrance 4 by the log area.
Yeah, you can't because you don't have a pin access. You can't punch into the code. But you go in an entrance by entrance 1, full-time guard, 24/7. You get a badge, you walk down the hall over to the club station.
And if you want, sometimes I can walk you through that. You know, I can meet you over there, we'll go through it, get you checked in, and show you how to get down there and all that so you can get on the station.
So you have to walk a mile from.
Yes.
Well, sadly, I mean, I tried to get badges, and they said,
I know.
you know, it went
Do
up,
they have
percolate.
wheelchairs?
What's that?
Do they have wheelchairs?
There is wheelchairs around there, yes.
I don't think that's a public.
Yeah, I don't know how that's supposed to work, but yeah, but we can get you badges for that. Yeah, I know. I understand totally. I got a bad knee, and so. Okay, yes.
I might mention, at least in the main plant, sometimes you have to help the guard find.
Oh, right, yes.
In mind, when they say it's not there, say, go look in the drawer. I think maybe they got it labeled radio log. but just be prepared to help the guard.
Right.
First step.
Right, yes. But absolutely, I'll come over and help. Get you checking in so you can see what you have and what we can do and stuff like that. So today, I asked some guys to come down from Waterloo and give us some overview of DMR. Heard lots of stuff about it. I'm very uninformed about how this is different than Fusion or D-Star. And so they're going to give us the whole demo here. And I will pass the microphones to you guys. And you can take it from here. One of them is the PA for the room, that's that one. And the other one's for the cameras. So that what we put online still...
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Outstanding. Oh, and you have the thing to move yourself.
Let's see here. I got it.
And your laser pointer.
If I can get it. I got the laser pointer. I'm set.
All right. You got it.
Good evening, everybody. It is really nice to be here. We've been looking forward to coming down to Cedar Rapids and meeting you folks and talking about what you're doing and what you're doing in digital radio. Before we get started, though, I'm kind of curious, what kind of questions do you have? Do you have a fair amount of experience with digital in general? Not too much. Not too much, okay. Any specific questions? Martin, you've used DMR a little bit. What do you think so far?
So far, so good. I just put up the hotspot, and I talked to Germany worldwide.
Berlin?
Yeah.
Your hometown? We're having a lot of fun with this. We'll tell you a little bit about, I wonder if this is going to work. Let me see, it's on. Yeah, good enough. We'll talk a little about the story we have. None of this was planned. Yes?
Who are you?
I am, that's a perfect question. If I would have looked right at the bottom here, I'm Scott Lau, and we've got Tom Bickett and Dick Nelson and Bill Diedick back there, Curtis Wilson and Stan Johnson. And we are very good friends, and we have a lot of fun together, not just with DMR stuff, but we do all sorts of stuff together, traditional stuff. But what happened was, we have a little bit of a story. We never planned on what is happening in Iowa to happen. It's just us having fun, trying new things. Let me back up here a second. But one thing led to another, to another, to another. And what's happened has been pretty exciting for us. I was assuming you knew a fair amount, which may or may not be a safe assumption. But one of the things that you hear about is the network. Some of you may have heard about the DMR MARC network. Is that true? Okay, all right, good. DMR originated with the Motorola operation. It's a commercial network. It was meant for commercial operations, not amateur operations. And the amateurs, just like you folks working for these companies like Motorola, are like, this is neat technology. We can use this, play with this as amateurs. We can experiment with it. It's not just for commercial people. We can do some neat things. So what you saw going back a few years ago, these blue dots here, those are the DMR MARC networks. They're just servers. MARC stands for Motorola Amateur Radio Club, just like Collins Amateur Radio. So these are just amateurs working for Motorola, developing this system using their technology, which some found as amateurs, we're innovative. We like to do things that are a little out of the normal envelope. They found it restrictive. And so they're like, we can adapt this to our own use. We can expand it. We can innovate. We can do things that Motorola doesn't really have any interest in doing, or the commercial market has no interest in. So another group got together, mainly over in Europe, only about a year and a half ago. This is new stuff, cutting edge. And they said, well, shoot, we don't like being restricted like Motorola's restricting us. We're going to do our own thing. And they became the Brandmeister people. Brandmeister is just an operating system. It's a series of servers that have an internet presence. So all the green dots represent the Brandmeister initiatives. And of course, Chicago, home of Motorola, obviously there's a lot of blue dots there. You look out here on the West Coast, well, they're a little more innovative out there, and you can see exactly what's happening in the United States. Now, this map is not current. In fact, we have a whole bunch more of these green pinpoints here in Iowa that aren't there yet.
Are they incompatible?
And that's a good question. Yes and no. There are some bridges. The question is, are these two systems incompatible? There are some bridges that certain talk groups, certain functions are bridgeable. But for the most part, no, not really. For example, we'll talk later about talk groups. Iowa has a talk group called 3119 Iowa Talk Group. Every state has a number for a talk group. Well, there's DMR Mark has a 3119 Iowa Talk Group, and Brandmeister has a 3119 Iowa Talk Group. They can't talk to each other. If I go to Chicago, I go there in Chicago, I couldn't talk to my friends back in Iowa. There are some ways to do it. There are reflectors, but we frankly don't have a lot of interest in doing that. But that answers part of that question. Now, here's the thing. When we started out, people were like, well, you're going to go with Brandmeister or you're going to go with DMR Mark Network? Which network? We didn't know. We started out up in Cedar Falls on the DMR Mark Network, and one of the fellows up there, Chris, who's smarter than we are, goes, you know, I'm going to change my repeater over to Brandmeister just to see what that's all about. He liked it. So one of the decisions we made a few months ago was, okay, I guess we ought to go with a Brandmeister. And that's what you're seeing as a result of that decision. Now,
Does that change rate? You need a different radio to talk
no. In fact, any of these radios you can program for, it's just the repeater you're on.
Okay.
Without going too deep into the technical part of it is,
How it interacts with the internet.
yeah, and other repeaters, yeah. So there could be some debate here. So now let's look at Europe. There's Europe, okay? It's pretty clear to see the way the Europeans are going. They're Brandmeister all the way. So one of the things that we were kind of concerned about early on is, okay, we have our little, we only had about 4 or 5 repeaters here a few months ago. We have our little repeaters here. We really want to talk to other people as we drive around in our vehicles, but yet if Cedar Rapids or Des Moines or somebody else chooses to go with the DMR Mark network, we're not on the same page, and that kind of isn't what we want to do. So that's why we had this discussion about, okay, which network is appropriate. This is a little bit about how this evolved. Back in November and December, well, Tom and I invested in a D-Star repeater here a few years ago, and we had fun playing with D-Star. Nobody ever used it. I mean, we had, I think at the high point, did we have 10 or 12 people that invested in the handhelds and so on? Tom and I spent a fortune on ICOM equipment, but there really wasn't anybody that really used it. You know, it was a fairly high cost of entry. But we had a D-Star repeater in Grundy Center on a nice tower site that we were just thrilled to get. And for a year or two prior to that, Chuck Angel and Chris Conklin up in Cedar Falls were dabbling with digital. They dabbled with P25, they dabbled with DMR. We kind of did the D-Star thing. And they kept saying, this is great. This is great. You ought to try this here. Well, we didn't know what they were talking about. We had no idea. It was like, oh, yeah, we're happy with our 2-meter repeater, and we're happy with our D-Star repeater, or whatever. But one day over breakfast, we get together every Monday morning for breakfast, every Tuesday afternoon or noon for lunch. Well, we had this nice tower site up here in Grundy Center on D-Star, and Chuck goes, well, you know, you ought to take my repeater and just hook it up to your antenna one of these days and just see what this is about. So, okay, fine. When you want to do it? He goes, anytime you want, right now. Let's go to your house right now. Let's take your DMR repeater, drive it to Grundy Center, disconnect the D-Star, hook on the DMR. Well, right here. Get one of these $100 radios, which really are quite good. And holy smokes, we had no idea what this is all about. So we've been in a real steep learning curve here. And we'll talk some of why. And of course, Tom, I couldn't get him pried away from D-Star for a while, but that took, what, maybe a day or two? And it's like, you know, maybe we should buy a DMR repeater. And that's exactly what happened. Bill came along, Bill Diedick, and he helped fund this thing. And again, that's what the DMR system looked like in Iowa back in December. You got, this is the very first one over here at Mount Pleasant. And Barry put that up a few years ago. Nobody used it. He took it down, put up D-Star. Nobody used that either. It was collecting dust. Well, once we got this going up here, and then Chuck lives down here as well, then Barry said, well, heck, I'll put mine back on the air. Bill.
Scott, what's the red versus green on this box?
What these are, when you have a repeater, Brandmeister is really cool, okay? The infrastructure behind this is really neat, and it's getting better every day. But you will put in your latitude and longitude when you register your repeater. You put in the latitude and longitude, you put in the antenna height, you determine the effective radiated power, you know, based on the gain of your antenna and so on. And it actually, Brandmeister will create a topographical plot of the RF coverage area. These are pretty accurate, we are finding. The red part is kind of where, I don't want to use the word assured, but you've got pretty good handheld reliability. The green areas, you're on the fringe. In your vehicle, you know, that's a different story. But for handheld operation, that's what you're seeing there. That's back just in December, just a few months ago. Well, we talked to our group up in Waterloo, gave a presentation kind of like this, and we were asked to give another talk over at Grundy Center to another group of hams, and somehow some guys started showing up from around the state. They came from Lamar's and Humboldt and places like that to learn about DMR because they're up there being real lonely. They're interested in this, but nothing's going on up there. Well, to our surprise, within weeks, well, heck, we're going to buy one of these things. So Lamar's put one in, and Humboldt put one in, Rick and Don up there. Victor came along, that benefits Martin. These started popping up like this. We've got one over here in Bondurant, and Fayette came online. Independence came online here a few weeks ago. They had an antenna problem with their big antenna at 200 foot. So they're temporarily operating off of a 50-foot tower. And so anyhow, this is what happened. We never expected this to happen. Now we start thinking about, look at, we've got like everything east of I-35. We're almost getting some seamless coverage in there. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? DMR uses talk groups. You don't link to a repeater. D-Star, you can link to a repeater. Fusion, you can link to a repeater. DMR doesn't really do that. We all share a common network. So, depending on the talk group that you choose to use, let's say you're on the Iowa talk group. You could be down here with your handheld radio and talk to someone up there on their handheld radio. If you're on the Iowa talk group 3119, when you press the push to talk button, you light up all these repeaters simultaneously. You're sharing the same talk group. Now, if Martin wants to talk to his hometown in Berlin, that's your hometown, right? Berlin. He says, I think he contacted me one day, and this is the first time we've met, by the way, but we've been exchanging information for weeks. He goes, is there any way I could talk to my hometown back in Berlin? Yeah, there's hundreds of talk groups. And I think I found, what, 6 or 8 that are German-speaking talk groups, some of them in Austria and so on, Germany in general, Berlin in particular. And all he has to do is, instead of talking to Iowa, he just clicks to a different talk group, and now he's talking to his hometown in Berlin. That's how DMR works. He doesn't have to link to a repeater there. He simply has to get on a talk group that is shared on a variety of repeaters. There's also a talk group on here that will link to 900 repeaters at one time. Or if you're here in Cedar Rapids, you have some special event or something, or if we're up chit-chatting in Waterloo and we're bothering you, you can just select the Cedar Rapids area talk group and have your own talk group that you share on your own. So that's...
When he's talking to Berlin, then only the repeater he's hitting and Berlin are the only ones that hear him.
And that's a very good point.
Correct.
Bill will talk in a little bit. There's static talk groups, dynamic talk groups. We have and you program the repeater the way you want to. But what we've done is we've got 6 or 8 Iowa talk groups that are static. The repeaters always listen to those talk groups. And then when Martin wants to talk to Berlin, he goes to, on his talk group, when he chunks the push to talk button, boom, it connects. Only his repeater, usually, I think you're using a Victor repeater, or a Victor repeater. So when he's over here, when he chunks German talk group, it connects only to the Victor repeater that goes over to the repeaters that are probably static over in Germany. So when he talks, they hear him. And the rest of us don't hear him.
People in the same area won't hear him either?
If they're in Germany, they would.
I mean, here.
No, If I knew he was talking and I wanted to listen to him, I could click into that talk group and hear him.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So is it a GDMA network? How many simultaneous users can they have? Are there multiple frequencies each repeater?
Well,
how are they getting, how heavily can you load one cell if it's effectively?
Bill will talk about the technology, but these repeaters have 1 frequency and 2 time slots. So you can have 2 simultaneous conversations at the same time and you can't hear each other.
No, I understand. That means that if I'm in, Iowa City there, Johnson County?
Yeah.
So me and one other guy can have talks going on at the same
Oh, yeah.
time, and that repeater that's loaded, correct?
No, No, you can put more on. You actually can open up, I don't want to say unlimited. We've opened up 7, 8 talk groups at the same time. But you're sharing 2 time slots. So if you've got 8 people trying to have a conversation, yeah, it works, but there's delays because you're sharing 2 time slots.
No, you get it busy, so you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. When you press the button, it goes, and you look at the S meter.
Well, the other thing is each talk group, you got sub-talk groups. So normally 3119, we would use that as a call, like a calling channel. If you know you're going to have a long QSO with someone, then you should tell them, well, let's go to sub-channel such and such. So you're not, tying up the main talk group.
DMR currently has about 200 fairly active users in Iowa. So far, there has not been an issue, but there will be. Des Moines just today bought their repeater, and we're going to have it online by Saturday. And, this is very rapidly increasing. But that's why, going back 2 or 3 months ago, we created sub-talk groups. We knew this was going to happen. Well, we didn't know. We thought it might happen. And so we prepared other talk groups. So, the new repeaters in process. You got Des Moines, just came online today. There's some, let's back up here just a second. Forget Des Moines for a moment. Up until today, if you looked at the coverage in Iowa, is there anything unusual about this? Normally, go ahead. Normally, you would expect to, in the major metro areas, have new innovation take root, and then in the rural areas have trouble getting someone to invest in the sparsely populated areas of a state. In Iowa, we didn't have any trouble in the sparsely populated areas of the state. We Didn't have Des Moines, didn't have Cedar Rapids, Quad Cities, Dubuque still aren't there yet. So now, as of yesterday, or today, Des Moines online, and the strategic areas are, as you see there, and one up there. We've got contacts here anyhow. The point is, we sat back about 6 weeks ago and looked at what was happening and all the people that were contacting us, holy smokes, we're on the verge of having a seamless statewide communication system. Now you start thinking about applications for public service, ARES activities, supporting the Weather Service for their storm spotting activities. You know, this is a pretty viable system that nobody's ever had before. And long story short, the National Weather Service is now on board. The State Emergency Operations Center is now on board. They're going full speed ahead in the public service area. And that's what this is another, Tim, Martin's friend, has another map. That's just another RF plotting map that he has. These are all UHF, except that one right up there. Any idea why they're all UHF except for one? Why UHF? What's that? Availability. Yeah, frequency pairs. You know, 2 meters is all pretty much saturated. It's all crowded. You can't really get 2 meter frequency pairs very well. But there's plenty of UHF. The other thing that we're finding is there's so many repeaters. They're just underutilized or not utilized. They're collecting dust. Anyhow.
So are people switching, just
Yeah.
keeping their same pairs?
Yeah, and that's,
Pulling out their FM and putting.
it's a 5-minute change. You already got the antenna at a nice location. You got some good feed line going to it. You got the power, the building. You need internet. You prefer to have internet. You need internet, and there's various ways to do that. And you take one out, and you put the other one in, and you're online. So a lot of these have been converted from analog to the digital DMR. The other thing is, I make this point, you're a club, and there's 20 repeaters right now. Of the 20 repeaters, how many are owned and supported by clubs? Any guess? Oh, 0. Pretty good guess. I think there's one. Is there one or two? One. I guess. Okay, Tom and I are a club, and so we own a repeater. So that's 2. How many repeaters are owned by clubs?
Here in Cedar Rapids, it's a high number.
Well, I'm talking about those repeaters. There's one or two. All of the rest, my point is, all of the rest of them are because people sitting there hearing about this, they come up afterwards, they say, I want one of those. I've got a place for it. I want to stimulate some activity. I want one. Bill and Dick and all went out and bought, off eBay, you buy what you can buy, refurbish them. And then when the guy says, I want one, there, you got it. So that's one of the ways that the growth has exploded as it has, because people stepped up, individuals. I think clubs should be doing this. I don't know why. We all benefit from it. I don't know why individuals are, carrying the load, but that's, I just make that point. Clubs should be doing this. Okay, activity. This changes every day. Every day I check the database of new register. You have to register like D-Star. You have to register your radio, get a DMR number, which is the same as your D-Star number. If you have a D-Star number now, it works on this system. But every day I update this. And it was interesting. We had about 30 people using these radios very actively within a few weeks. We were buying these $100 radios in boxes of 10 just so people didn't have to wait to get the radio. Hey, they were excited. Yeah, we program it up. There you go. So right up here, we had a lot of folks pretty quickly. Des Moines had about 2 or 3 people. But when the repeaters start going in, right now Des Moines at 21, and I don't want to bet.
A couple months ago there was
2?
2 to 4, I believe.
I wouldn't be surprised there's 50 or 55 here real soon. But nonetheless, we're talking about a statewide seamless system. You don't have to link to individual repeaters. You just pick your talk group and talk. And personally, I think it'd be nice to have activity in every one of our counties. It's good for amateur radio. There are 6,000 licensed hams in Iowa, and most of them are inactive. So, not unrealistic. Now, I'm not going to go over this. Maybe I'm going to go over it fast. I assume because you had Fusion experience, D-Star experience, and all that, digital's digital. It all does the same stuff. You know about the range. It's nice and quiet. It's very pleasant to listen to. The audio is pretty good. I love it. I don't really care for analog anymore. Yeah, they all do GPS in one form or another. You can route your calls to specific radios. That's pretty much common. I don't know, well, if we talk here, if someone talks here on that screen, you see the person's name, call sign, where they're from, what talk group they're using, what time slot they're using. All that information is right on your screen. So you know who you're talking to. We'll let Bill talk about the technology. Actually, the batteries last a lot longer because of the 2 time slot thing. The transmitter is only transmitting half the time. Batteries last a long time. We'll talk about that later. And we like the idea for emergency services, public service. We can take this portable repeater, DMR repeater, and it took us 10 minutes to install it today. We can take it anywhere. And within minutes, we're on this network. Of course, you're familiar with this. For the weather service, for the EOC operations, they know who they're talking to, they know where they're at, because there's the name. This is Craig, friend of ours up in Waterloo, and there's Dick right there. I'm sitting in my pickup truck and they're talking to each other. But you know who you're talking to. It's really neat.
Question.
Yes, sir.
About your black box in the emergency situation. Earlier you said you need a tower, an antenna, radio, and internet. And you said, well, you'd like to have internet. If you don't have internet, but you had statewide coverage, what could you do? No internet.
That's a perfect question that always comes up. All these systems, even your telephones, rely on the internet, okay? The question always is, okay, what happens if the internet's not working? Well, we could speculate about that, but just last weekend, in fact, the internet didn't work. Somebody made a boo-boo and anyhow knocked these repeaters off. Well, we have a net on Sunday night for DMR. And we get usually 56 people checking in and stuff, and that's growing all the time. But by golly, here we are, 30 minutes before an activity, we have no internet. And we got a bunch of repeaters around the state, but no internet. So first thing was, oh my, we may have to cancel the net tonight. Oh no, we are not going to do that. All we did is we had individuals from every area, go ahead and do your net, and then we communicate other ways. In real life it'd be HF, or you take and turn your beam towards the other repeater. And we actually did the net just fine with no preparation. It was a real live thing. So yeah, the internet adds capabilities, but it's a misnomer. So many people think, oh, if the internet quits working, we lose our communication system. No, it's still a repeater. You still have a 50, 60 mile coverage area.
It's local communication of that repeater. That one repeater will not talk to a repeater of Northwest Iowa. That's a link.
See, look, like you said, point antennas strategically and link 2 circles together. That could be possible.
Well, one of to get around that, people are talking about RF linking, and having a mesh network and all this stuff. And, I was thinking, see, these repeaters, just by coincidence, most of them are on 200 plus towers. They're pretty wide coverage areas in and of their own. Well, it wasn't too many years ago we had Yagis that we rotated, that we pointed and talked to people we wanted to talk on 440 and 2 meters and so on. So it's a real simple technology that I think we need to revisit.
That's our future. There are a lot of options.
And in the meantime, we can do a bunch of other linking things. Now, this is what I thought might be more thoughtful, something to think about for tonight. Because you do have some experience with Fusion. You do have some experience with D-Star. And now you're talking about DMR. What in the heck's the difference? Well, one of the things is DMR is open source. It's not proprietary. Fusion is Yaesu And the D-Stars, ICOM, by and large.
No melt encoding or
What's that?
no melt encoding or audio codec that's special for it.
Honestly, well, there is. But
It's not right.
some people talk about audio quality. Honestly, I don't care. The quality of all these radios sounds plenty understandable. I can hear so much better with digital than I can with analog. I don't have the hissing and all the stuff that goes with it. But the fact it's an open source system, that's what spawned Brandmeister to start developing stuff. And that's what's encouraged over 40 manufacturers worldwide, a lot of them in China, to start making $100 radios instead of the $400, $500, $600 radios. And that was one of the barriers to entry. That was one of the issues with the other technologies is it's pretty expensive for some of these folks to get into that. So, plus we got some neat radios that are being produced. Yes, sir.
To answer his question, they do have their own codec and their vocoders, but they're not proprietary, like the ICOM and the Yaesu.
And Motorola's.
And Motorola's. But DMR uses its own codec, but it's readily available to anybody that wants it.
So it's a chip that's purchased and put in these radios?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So
It's not proprietary.
the guy who owns it will tell you it's proprietary.
Yeah. And then the fact is, I talk about this unrestrained innovation that the Brandmeister people are doing. It's only limited by the imagination of people that are actually writing the software. And every time we say, well, could you do this or does it do that? Usually the answer is, well, it's on the to-do list. We've already thought about it, we just haven't got there yet. So we're going ahead forward. This is going to keep growing and expanding, adding capabilities. The other thing is, and maybe Martin can attest, Martin, you bought a radio. How difficult was it for you to get on DMR?
Overnight.
Yeah, how'd that happen? You bought a radio.
I went on the internet, I asked you to write me a plug, and you did.
We have a master code plug. We wanted to make it real easy. One of the reasons that, we bought our D-Star radios for about half price. The reason was people buy these things, they cannot figure out how to program, they get so frustrated, they put it back on eBay for half price. So we didn't want people messing up the system, so we started writing a standard code plug to kind of help them get started. Now, once they're started, they can do whatever they want, but help them get started. Well, we've now have 200 users. We have had no problems. We have people like Martin buy a radio, load the code plug like you've all been code plug. It's just a memory. It's, in the analog radio, you program the memory. That's what Motorola calls a code plug. So they just program the radio, turn it on, and they're online.
Just a comment. I have a D-Star radio in Marino, and I got a 13-element beam pointed in Cedar Rapids direction, and I can't make the repeater because you got the antenna on the back side of the tower. It can't hear it. DMR is totally different ball.
Now, just like the dongles that are available for the other ones, yeah, this little blue thing here, I'm not going to touch it. That little blue thing there is called a hotspot, and a lot of us have hotspots. I think, Martin, you have one now? Yep. So if for some reason you can't get to a repeater, he's on a trip or something, if I'm out flying somewhere, I just plug in the hotspot, and I have my own personal repeater. So I can use DMR anywhere. I can use it in my car. That device there is meant to be portable in your car. And we kind of like the fact, there's a lot of used commercial quality equipment out there, like Motorola and Hytera and stuff. Well, we're buying this stuff. We find out, it's pretty cool. It does roaming and a whole bunch of neat things. And the difference is too, and I made the point earlier, we're actually sharing talk groups with users that have similar interests rather than linking to anything. We don't link to repeaters. The talk group does that kind of seamlessly. And statewide coverage. Even the state police really don't have seamless statewide coverage. And as of the last couple weeks, this has been adopted by our local National Weather Service in Des Moines and the state EOC. Now, Bill, let's talk about a little bit of the technology that you have questions about.
After following this act, I don't know if I need to say anything. So, we'll get,
Do you want this?
yes, please. I've been told I talk too loud on the radio, so I don't think I need a microphone, but if someone cannot hear me.
For recording.
Oh, okay.
For the recording. So if you don't want the PA, that's the one in his right pocket is the PA. The one in his left pocket is the...
Look, you look nice with this. We're going to dress you up here.
Wires for sound.
Okay, I guess we're wired now. Can you hear me all right? I can hear you now. Okay. Okay, what is DMR? Digital Mobile Radio. And it's all based on a European standard. It's the same standard that brought telecommunications in, cellular technology, the ETSI standard. And basically, everything we're using is based on that cell phone technology, TDMA communications. There's 3 tiers of DMR. Now I should ask, how much time do we have for tonight? When do you guys wrap up? 6:15. 6:15? Okay. So I'm going to move rapidly here. But there are 3 tiers of DMR. And so you got to be careful when you buy a DMR radio, don't buy the wrong one, because some of it's junk. Tier 1 is a single channel radio. It will not work on our systems. Tier 2 uses 2 time slots. This repeater over here basically has two repeaters built in one, 2 time slots. So you can have those simultaneous communications that Scott was mentioning earlier. So, and then Tier 3 is a trunk system for roaming. Some of the more advanced radios, like the Motorola's, we use it like a cell phone. We can set this, when we travel across Iowa, it automatically changes to the repeaters as it finds them, and we can continue our talking. So, TDMA transmitted signals are segmented into time slots. So you can have 2 conversations at the same time on the same frequency. So like this repeater here is using transmit as 443.725, okay? And it's, standard repeater. Somebody could be on a radio, notice it's a cell phone. Like I said, there's always some reference to cellular technology here. But you can have a guy talking on one radio and another guy talking to the other radio. It'll come down the line